Hello, everyone. This is Paleo 101 here, and I'm going to be talking about something very different from what I typically talk about on my channel. I don't necessarily talk about things between evolution and creationism. I try to completely disregard that from my channel because I know there's other channels that do a heck of a better job than I can on debunking a lot of these claims, and they spend a lot of time with creationism and debunking creationists. But I specifically wanted to talk about this particular instance where there was a creation video on a creationist channel. And apparently, this guy is a credited geologist, but he's made ridiculous claims on the fossil record and evolution. And I kind of wanted to debunk those claims today with you. Like I said, I don't necessarily debunk a lot of creationists on my channel because my channel is not for that. And it kind of brings this up idea of there is a debate between evolution and creationism. There isn't. The Earth is 4.5 billion years old, and creation and evolution is a fact. It is the best explanation for the biodiversity of life on Earth. But I just kind of wanted to kind of get that out of the way and kind of debunk a lot of these claims that this particular person has made in this video. So we'll get started. So a little bit about me. I do not have a formal training within geology or paleontology. I want to get that out of the way. I am a freelance researcher in the field of paleontology, and I specifically focus on historical geology, and I study fossils from the eastern part of the United States. Though I do not have a formal background within these fields of science, I work very closely with professional geologists and paleontologists inside and outside of the field. I'm a member of the Atlanta Geological Society, the Georgia Mineral Society, and the Geological Society of America, and the Paleontology Association of Georgia. So I belong to these various different groups, and I spend a lot of my time self-educating myself on the subjects of paleontology and geology. And let me put that out of the way. I do not have a formal training in this background, but I do research and I work in museums and labs, and I work very closely with professional paleontologists. So today we're going to be debunking the claims made by Dr. Tim Clarey. He is actually a geologist in the Institute of Creation Research. So we're going to look at a little bit of his background, and then we're going to debunk the claims that he has made in the video about a couple of days ago. And so he has a Master's of Science in Geology in hydrogeology in 1984 from the University of Wyoming. He has a PhD in hydrogeology. Note, not biology or paleontology. He's going to make a lot of claims here about paleontology and biology, and he does not have a formal background or training within paleontology. So I want to get that out of the way. I don't understand why a hydrogeologist who has a PhD in hydrogeology talking about subjects outside of this field. And apparently you have a lot of creation scientists that do this. Georgia Purdom of Answers in Genesis, who I believe is a molecular biologist or a molecular scientist, makes claims within geology and tries to debunk claims within geology, but her training is not in geology whatsoever. Her training is in what I believe is molecular science. I could be wrong, but I think she's a molecular scientist or some related field belonging to biology. But she continues to make claims and trying to debunk geology, and she herself has no formal training in geology. And so you have a lot of these creationists who will make claims outside of their fields, and those claims are absolutely incorrect. So let me say this again. Dr. Tim Clarey has a PhD in hydrogeology, but he will continue to make claims within paleontology. He will make a lot of claims about dinosaurs and have no understanding on the subjects that he's talking about. So I just want to, put that out of the way. So we're going to be with false claims. So one of the false claims that he made was all fossils show stasis. That is absolutely incorrect. So biostasis is the lack of evolutionary changes within an organism or group of organisms due to the organism being well adapted to its environment. So a lot of creationists will say, where's the evolution between the modern horseshoe crabs and then the horseshoe crabs we see in the fossil record? That is a claim that a lot of creationists will make. And so here we have on the screen is a horseshoe crab from the late Jurassic from the Solnhofen Formation. And then we have a modern living horseshoe crab, or the Atlantic horseshoe crab. Though their body looks very similar, they are not the same species. We can go as farther as this particular group, and we can look at this group. A lot of these groups are from that appeared within the Ordovician. This particular group of horseshoe crabs appeared in the Ordovician. They are not the same thing. Though their body looks similar because of very little changes, that does not mean that they are the exact same thing as they existed in the present and or the past. So just to put that in perspective, these particular fossils are horseshoe crabs, but they are not the same group and they are not the same species or genus of horseshoe crab living today. Though their shape looks very similar because of biostasis and because of very little evolutionary changes, because of the animals being suited with their environment, that does not mean that they are the exact same creature living today. I want to definitely make that as perfectly clear as I can. Just because an organism looks very similar as it did in the past or in the present does not mean it's the exact same thing of living today. And here's an evolutionary history of some of these horseshoe crabs. Notice how their body changes how they have very different body changes. Now their structure overall, their outside body looks very similar, but they are not the same thing evolutionarily. An organism doesn't necessarily need to change all that much if the animal or if the organism is suited is well suited within its environment. Not all organisms show stasis within the fossil record. We can look at crinoids living, modern crinoids and crinoids that live in the past. I've collected crinoids before. I know a lot of echinoderm paleontologists. This particular cladogram or this phylogenetic tree was put forward by Dr. Davy Wright, and I know them both personally. Dr. Davy Wright and Selena Cole are both married echinoderm paleontologists, and they study specifically the evolutionary relationship of crinoids. And this particular phylogenetic tree was created by Dr. Davy Wright. Some creationists will say, oh, look at the living crinoid and look at the fossil crinoid. They look exactly the same thing. Their body structure may look very similar, but that does not mean that they are the exact same thing living in the past. That is not true. We have various different taxonomic groups of crinoids that are completely extinct. And if you look at those taxonomic groups, they are not the same crinoid living today. We have Articulatus, the only living group of crinoids living today. There are other specific groups of crinoids that were living within the Devonian, within the Carboniferous, within the Permian that no longer exist today. And if you would look at their fossils, their structure may look similar, but if you look at their articulated fossils, they do not look the same at all. They have various different features within the fossil or within the structure of their body that modern crinoids do not have, or that they are lacking. And even in certain phyla, Echinodermata is a phylum that we have. And so a lot of creationists will say, oh, look at the various different types of phyla. The animals or the organisms that were, that are in that phyla never changed. That's not true. We have various different classes within every single phyla that are extinct. And we have various different classes within a phyla that are extinct. So these are extinct classes of echinoderms. We have the Cystoidae, Blastoidae, and Edrioastoidae. These are all classes of echinoderms or within the phylum Echinodermata that are completely gone, they're extinct. And we don't have living representations of these classes within the phylum Echinodermata. So to say that all fossils show stasis is an absolutely incorrect statement. And as we look here, over 99.9% of the species that have evolved on Earth are now extinct. That says something. So the organisms that exist today are just a very small representation of what actually existed on Earth. Majority of the organisms that we see in the fossil record are extinct. And so to say that all fossils show stasis is absolutely incorrect because we have various different groups that no longer exist today. 99% of the 4 billion species that have evolved are now extinct. Claim number 2, fossils show sudden appearance with no ancestry. That is false. Dr. Tim Clary claims that T-Rex shows up fully formed with no descendants in the fossil record. Mind you, he makes this claim, and I have heard and have seen other creationists make this claim before, that all fossils show up with no descendants within the fossil record. The fossil record, or fossils in general, it's going to be very hard to form fossils. So not every single animal that has ever existed on Earth is going to show an evolutionary history because of fossilization being rare. But just because not every single fossil shows an ancestral history doesn't necessarily mean that there is no ancestral history within every fossil, you know? And he makes the claims that T-Rex had no descendants. Well, here you are. Here are various different tyrannosauroids or tyrannosaurs with an evolutionary history. He claims that T-Rex is a fully formed dinosaur with no ancestry whatsoever. That is a false claim. Either he doesn't know the various different tyrannosauroids that we have within the fossil record, or he is choosing to ignore the evidence of the evolutionary history within tyrannosaurs. And actually, tyrannosaurs is one group of dinosaurs that we have a really good understanding of their evolutionary history. So here I have on the screen of various different tyrannosauroids and tyrannosaurs. Proceratosaurus, which has been known since 1910, is from the Middle Jurassic. Guanglong, which is from the early Jurassic, which is described in 2006. Iliorhammus, 1976, from the late Cretaceous of Mongolia. And one of my personal favorites, Appalachiosaurus, in 2005, from the late Cretaceous of Alabama. So here's a phylogenetic tree showing the evolutionary relationships within tyrannosaurs. This is a paper that was put by Steve Brusati and Dr. Thomas Carr in 2016. And these show the evolutionary relationship within tyrannosaurs. Every single name on this list is a fossil representation. So some creationists will say, oh, paleontologists are just drawing lines to see what fits. No, we have evolutionary relationships within these organisms, within these tyrannosaurs. So we can, and all of these particular names have fossils associated with them. And we can look at some of these specific types of dinosaurs or specific types of tyrannosaurs, and we can show how close and how far they are to the group of tyrannosauroids. Dr. Tim also makes the claims, I think I got his last name wrong here, I meant to fix that, but he also makes the claim that sauropod dinosaurs show up fully formed with long necks and tails. Either he is not aware of the primitive characteristics of early sauropods, or he is choosing to ignore the fossil evidence of early sauropods. We have Burlestes, which was described in 2016 in the Santa Maria Formation, a late Triassic deposit in southern Brazil. It is a relationship between early sauropods in connecting the relationship between theropods. So we know that sauropodomorphs, these particular groups of dinosaurs, which we call basal sauropodomorphs, the earliest known sauropodomorphs that we have in the fossil record, have a close evolutionary relationship with theropod dinosaurs. And so this Burlestes is considered to be an early sauropodomorph based upon its characteristics. It has a very theropod-like anatomy with the sharp teeth and everything else to it. But when you look at early sauropodomorphs and their evolutionary relationship, you can see that their anatomy is very similar. This dinosaur does not have a long neck. This dinosaur does not have, what we would consider to be anything that of anything like a sauropod or whatsoever to it. These are early sauropod dinosaurs that evolved from meat-eating dinosaurs. So when he says that sauropods show up in the fossil record with long necks and long tails, that is obviously not true. He's either ignoring the evidence of that or he is unaware of the evidence. The evolution of dinosaurs as a whole is a continuous research. We don't necessarily know which is the oldest dinosaurs. Some of the oldest dinosaurs that we have are from South America. There even may be fossil evidence of really old dinosaurs in South Africa. And we have some that are found in the Western United States, in Arizona, Utah, etc. But just because we don't have we don't have all of it's there, or we don't have everything that's there, does not mean we don't have early dinosaurs. And so he also puts the claim that we don't know where dinosaurs come from. Even though that's a continuous research study, it doesn't necessarily mean we don't have fossils. Eodromius from 2011 is a dinosaur found in the Ischigualasto Formation in what we call the Valley of the Moon in northwestern Argentina. It was also found in the same rocks of Eoraptor, which was described in 1993. And we have various different types of complete skeletons or nearly complete skeletons of some early dinosaurs from South America and places in the Western United States. Just because we don't necessarily have everything that's there doesn't mean that the evidence is not staring at you right in the face of early dinosaurs. We have early dinosaurs and the ancestors of them. We have a great evolutionary history of ammonites and ammonoids. In fact, we can look at when we actually have ammonoids or cephalopods specifically evolved in the Cambrian. Ammonoids specifically evolved in the Devonian. And we have a great evolutionary history within this particular group of organisms. So nautiloids have, they actually have sutures. So sutures are basically the connections between the shells. And we have various different suture patterns within evolutionary history. Nautiloids, in every single time we go through the evolutionary history of ammonoids, their suture patterns becomes more complex. So in the Devonian, you'll typically see goniotidic, and then as in the Triassic, you'll see ceratidic, and in the Cretaceous, in the Jurassic and the Cretaceous, you'll see the ammonotic suture patterns until ammonoids or ammonites went extinct in the Cretaceous period. But nautiloids still exist today and still possess the nautiloid suture pattern. We have that great evolutionary relationship between everything, and their suture patterns show that evolutionary relationship. So we have a great evolutionary history of ammonoids. Claim 3, there is little evidence of the Cretaceous asteroid impact. That is false. We have the impact crater. We have the impact crater off the Gulf of Mexico and the Yucatan Peninsula. He needs, if he's making this claim, he needs to debunk that the Chicxulub crater is not an impact structure. He needs to go and try to disprove that the Chicxulub impact crater is not a crater caused by an asteroid impact. He also makes the claim that he drilled off the coast of Mexico where the crater is located for oil logs and did not see any melt or iridium. 1, Dr. Clary did not drill where the crater was located, or 2, he did not drill enough to see the melted rock. This is a drill core that was pulled out of the Chicxulub impact crater off one of the peak rings from the International Ocean Discovery Program in 2016. The borehole reached over 1,335 miles, over 4,380 feet below the seafloor. This drill core was pulled from the peak ring from the Chicxulub impact crater, and we have the melted rock. We have the brecciated granite, the basement rock, in which that rock was completely deformed when the asteroid hit and sent all of that material to the air and it rained back down. We have the actual impact crater and we have the melted rock. He either did not drill where he said he drilled or where the Yucatan Peninsula was located. You can drill off the Yucatan Peninsula and not hit the asteroid impact or not be near the asteroid impact. So he probably wasn't even near it, or he did not drill far enough into the impact crater to see the melted rock. And even if we didn't, we actually do see Cretaceous sediments as we go, and we see the Cenozoic sediment, the Paleogene sediment. And so when geologists drill, they actually have micropaleontologists. Micropaleontologists study microfossils. And so sometimes they look at individual forams to be able to tell you where in time those forams lived. So they can tell you if a foram lived in the Paleogene, and if they drill down into the Cretaceous, they can tell you which specific foram existed in the Cretaceous. We have those two different forams that show us time, the separations of time between the Cretaceous and the Paleogene. So that alone should tell you that there is a time difference between that because of the fossils or the microfossils that we see in the drill cores. He would also have to disprove not just the crater itself, but the geochemical and the physical evidence of the asteroid impact that hit 66 million years ago. We have shocked quartz. Shocked quartz is created when the asteroid hit the Earth, and it basically destroyed the crystalline structure of quartz. We have shocked quartz within the structure. We have that within the KPG boundary and other impact sites around the world. We also have spherules, also known as microtectites. This picture in the middle is one that I found when I visited the KPG boundary in Starkville, Mississippi. Spherules are actually created when the asteroid impact hit the Earth. It solidified and created basically a natural glass from the terrestrial rock. It threw it up into the air, and it rained back down as a very superheated natural glass. And this is actually what I actually found and collected when I was in the KPG boundary, looking at the spherules and looking at the fossil distributions below the boundary and above the boundary. There's various different fossil distributions with below the boundary and as you go far up into the boundary. Fossils are different. The Cretaceous fossils that we see that are below, and then we've got the Paleogene fossils that are above. But the spherules were basically came from all the way from New Mexico, from the ground zero asteroid impact, came all the way to Mississippi, and it rained back down. And that is actually what we see, the ejecta from the asteroid impact. So he would have to disprove the shocked quartz, which was formed by the shock waves from the asteroid, and he will also have to disprove the microtectites. And he will also have to disprove the worldwide distribution of the KPG boundary, the Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary. This is what we call a marker bed in geology. We can look at a specific type of event, and we can determine whether that event happened all around the world by the use of marker beds or by the use of this particular event structure. And this is the KPG boundary. We have the Cretaceous sediment below. We have this thin layer that has iridium and microtectites in it. And then above, we have coal, and then we have the Paleogene or tertiary sediments. We find this worldwide. You would have to disprove all three of these: the shocked quartz, the spherules and the microtectites, the KPG boundary, and the actual structure, the asteroid impact structure itself. You have to disprove all of that. We also have various different structures. And mind you, this person believes in Noah's flood. This person thinks that Noah's flood created all the rocks and formed all the fossils. How is that the case when we have asteroid impact structures in where you think the flood actually happened? How could asteroids and comets and things like that happen? Or how could these catastrophic events happen within an event that what you claim was worldwide? We have various different impact structures worldwide. So you would have to try to, fit all that in, or you just completely have to ignore the evidence, which I believe he's doing. We have the Wells Creek Basin, which is an asteroid impact structure that hit during the early Jurassic. This particular object or this particular impact crater is 7.5 miles wide, 12 kilometers. We have the Solebury crater, which I believe is one of the oldest craters that we have, and I believe one of the biggest, if I'm not mistaken. I think we have other craters that are big or bigger than this, but this is probably one of the oldest structures that we have. I could be wrong, but this one dates back to around 1.8 giga-annum, or over 1 billion years, so a Paleoproterozoic age. This impact structure is over 81 miles wide, 130 kilometers in diameter. We also have the Wetumpka crater, which is in Alabama, not too far from where I am. I'm in Georgia. So the Wetumpka crater is a impact structure that was formed by an asteroid impact over 80 million years ago. And not just that, but I also have the shatter cones from this locality. So shatter cones are rocks that are actually deformed by the shock wave from the asteroid. No other thing can make that. We don't even have volcanic structures that actually show shattered cones. So this is basically a smoking gun that actually showed that an asteroid hit here, because we have the shattered cones, we have geochemical evidence, and all the other and everything else. We actually have the crater itself. he would have to disprove a lot of these various different impact structures. So this one is about 4.7 miles and 7.6 kilometers in diameter. We have the Chesapeake impact crater from Virginia in the eastern shore of North America, which this particular asteroid hit during the Eocene around 35 million years ago. This particular structure is around 53 miles and is around 85 kilometers in diameter. And we also have Georgites. Here in Georgia, we also have evidence of that asteroid impact. Georgites are spherules or microtectites that were actually formed by the force of the asteroid hitting the Earth. And as we talked about in the Cretaceous mass extinction event, it created the exact same structures of what we see today, the exact same spherules, or not the exact same spherules, but very similar to the stuff that's found in the asteroid impact in the Chicxulub crater. Georgites, what we call tektites or microtectites, and these form from the terrestrial rocks being melted, flung back up into the air, and then rained down as a natural glass. We have evidence of that in the Chesapeake Bay crater, including the evidence here in Georgia. We call it Georgites. So that's going to be end of part one. I'm going to probably do a part two on this because he also makes outlandish claims of these particular kinds of, like, on evolution and on geology and things like that. As I said before, I don't do this kind of thing, but he has made some ridiculous claims that it only takes 2 seconds to go on to Google and to just disprove a lot of these claims. He is being, as a geologist, he's being completely, utterly dishonest with a lot of the things that he's saying. He's being intellectually dishonest, and he's choosing to ignore evidence that's looking at him straight in the face because he wants to believe in a Noah's flood story. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous. And so we need to call out these particular types of scientists, geologists, what have you, on making these outlandish claims.